This Week in Startups is brought to you by IBM, dedicated to supporting startups and developers by building developer communities in cities all over the world and providing support, connections, and opportunities to grow. Learn more at developer.ibm.com/startups.
Hey everybody. Welcome to another episode of This Week in Startups. When a new technology emerges, like blockchain or cryptocurrency, there's an opportunity to take that technology and apply it to all kinds of verticals and see if we can make the world a little bit better and perhaps build a lasting enterprise, a business, a growing concern that makes revenue. Now, we are in the middle of a cryptocurrency and ICO boom. People are going crazy about it. Is it a tulip mania type situation or a dot-com era style mania? Well, I think it's a dot-com style era mania, which is to say it's based on something very real, a real technology, in this case, cryptocurrency, blockchain, ICOs, all very real technology that has something to offer humanity. But as the case is in the dot-com era, overhyped and early. I have been very cautious in this space and not made many investments at all. But one company I did invest in is called AidTech. And AidTech is led by Nile Dennehy, and he is with me today. They're currently in the launch incubator as part of the Great Eight. Sometimes we do the Magnificent Seven, 7 companies per incubator class. Other times we do the Great Eight. In this case, we had 8 people come to the incubator. At the incubator, the companies come for 12 weeks. They do 20 sessions, and they meet and they pitch to over 250 investors. That's right. Every week, starting in the beginning, maybe 5 a week, then 15 a week, and then in the later weeks, even 100 in 1 week. We do this because if the company is able to pitch 250 of the greatest investors and syndicate members in the world, and they can't raise money, it tells us something. And as you know, we accept only companies in our Goldilocks zone, the GLZ, not the DMZ, the demilitarized zone, the GLZ. The Goldilocks zone. What is the Goldilocks zone for Jason Calacanis and the Launch Incubator? It means your product's in the market, you have some traction, but not so much traction that you've closed your Series A or Series B and you don't need any help from us. We want to be able to be helpful to the companies. We want to be the most helpful incubator to the companies. And that's why we selected AidTech to be part of the Launch Incubator in 2017. They won IBM Smart Camp. Is that right? You won IBM Smart Camp.
We did.
So welcome to the program, Nile, the winner of IBM Smart Camp at the Launch Festival, which then entitled you to come to the incubator. And you've been coming to the incubator now for, I think, 9 or 10 weeks.
All the way from Dublin, Ireland.
All the way. So you're commuting.
We are.
It's the second longest commute we've ever had.
What's the longest?
Hong Kong.
Wow.
Yeah, we're looking for a company from Dubai or Thailand to break, or India to break the record. But I think that you have the second. But tell everybody, what is AidTech?
Yeah,
and why did you create it?
I'm delighted to be on the show, Jason. I'm a super fan. Have been for a long time.
I know you are. You are genuinely a super fan. You email me and tell me about specific episodes. I appreciate that.
I know an episode's off there. I can tell you my favorite episode is 640 when you had Steve Case on, and he was a big inspiration for AidTech and what we're doing.
What is it about 640, Steve Case, that you like?
Steve Case, well, I think when you look at the book that Steve wrote, the third wave, as he called it, we believe that we are in the third wave, and we believe we are a startup that embodies what the third wave is. And what is
the third wave in his mind? Define that if you can.
Yeah, so the third wave is companies who are getting out there. They're in the real world. They're doing big things. It's something that we have a technology which we're harnessing now, and we believe it can achieve great things
in the real world, manifesting
in the real
like
world.
Airbnb or
exactly,
Uber
like
or
Airbnb,
Tesla
Uber.
or SpaceX. These are physical, real products, not just software.
And it's not an easy problem that we're trying to solve. It's going to take a bit of time, but we are doing it right now. And even my co-founder, Joe, for example, is in New York today. He's been named an SDG pioneer by the United Nations, one of only 10 people, and he's been given the accolade of SDG pioneer for blockchain technology.
What is that, like strategic developmental goals?
It's the sustainable
development goals.
Yeah.
It's a fancy word for priorities at the United Nations.
We think it's the world's toughest to-do list. And it's 17 goals set by 193 countries backed by the United
17
Nations.
goals. Some of those goals include?
Some of them would be, for example, Target 16, and there is a sub-target then called Target 16.9. And Target 16.9 is to bring legal identity to everybody on the planet by the year 2030. We are speeding that up by 13 years, and the UN have just recognized that this week. We're even up on a billboard in Times Square. My co-founder, Joe.
All right. So tell us, what does aid tech do? Because we're starting to dance around it, but I like to always ask the founder explicitly to answer this question. What does aid tech do?
So what we do is we are using digital identity based on blockchain technology to reduce fraud and corruption. So to give you a bit of context, Jason, $4.4 trillion is lost each year because of fraud, corruption, and lack of transparency. What we have done is we have created a digital identity which is based on blockchain. And with this, then we are distributing services like welfare, remittances, aid, and donations completely transparently with the blockchain as the foundation and digital identity as the receiving mechanism.
Right. So here we have it, an aid tech digital ID card with a QR code on it.
Exactly.
So when we met, you were working with refugees that were literally landing in Europe on certain coastlines. Is that correct?
That's correct. And the genesis of the idea, and if you let me tell a quick story, Jason.
Please.
It all goes back to my co-founder, Joe, and I'm going to talk about him a lot today because he is the inspiration behind AidTech. But it goes back to 2009, and Joe ran a marathon called the Marathon des Sables back in 2009, which is a 151-mile race through the Moroccan desert. It is known as the toughest foot race in the world. We like to think that it really embodies what AidTech is. But to give you an idea of what happened during that marathon, on day 2, Joe collapsed. We gave him some Gatorade. On day 3, he collapsed. We gave him some Guinness. He got back up. He did it. Day 4 was a 78-mile race. He finished it. Literally, he had to stay ahead of a camel. So one of the Bedouins was bringing a camel along. And the yardstick was that you've got to stay ahead of the camel to finish the race. But to bring it back to make it more relevant, essentially what happened was Joe raised a huge amount of money. One of the donors who gave him money, this was in the depths of the recession in 2009 in Ireland, in the Great Recession. Joe raised a big sum of money and he asked Joe about 6 months later, where did my money go? Joe wasn't able to give him an answer. So Joe had an idea then that why not look into blockchain technology to solve the problem? He was working on a thesis, and a guy who was looking at his thesis ran a charity where people cycle from Dublin, Ireland, all the way to Belarus to support children who were affected by the nuclear disaster there. And a lot of people were using crypto at the time to do things like Bitcoin was the main example, but we had this idea going back to the experience in the desert that if we could bring traceability to international aid, hence the name AidTech, we could actually do something really big with crypto.
So if I donate $1,000 to somebody running one of these races and it's going to go to refugees or it's going to go to, mosquito nets, I have no idea what gets there or not. Yeah. With your technology, it's super fascinating. People, every time they spend money with their ID card or their donation card or like a gift card, I guess, it tracks what was given to them. So if a pound of rice was given to a refugee and, some toothpaste and whatever it is, I would be able to see on the blockchain that this person who didn't have an identity now has an identity. They use their identity with a biometric, perhaps, a picture to spend the money I gave on something, and I got a result back. Giving me confidence that my donation to the Red Cross, to Houston victims, actually made it somewhere, and I can see what that something was.
You've hit the nail on the head. That's exactly what it is. And to give you an example, what you can do with our technology is if you make a donation, let's say you make a donation to the International Federation of the Red Cross, what you can do is you can trace that donation down to the level of an individual cent. So for example, if Jason gives $10 to the International Federation of the Red Cross, you can get an alert on your mobile phone telling you that your donation has been spent in country X by person Y for Z and what the amount was. You can trace it down to the level of the individual cent. But the key thing for us is that we have the partners to make it happen. We've signed a partnership agreement with the International Federation of the Red Cross in Geneva, the United Nations Development Programme, and we've got a huge amount of partners. And they are our distribution channel to get our technology out there. And then for us, we bring these efficiencies to governments like the government of Ireland, like the government of Armenia, like the government of Serbia. We're working on a big project with them at the moment. And the whole mission is to to bring social and financial inclusion to the world's undocumented and underserved population.
Why are people undocumented at this point? I'm curious. Doesn't every country have some sort of show me your papers? You need to have a driver's license. You need to have a passport. Why haven't they solved this already? It seems madness to me that in 2017 that everybody doesn't have something like a driver's license or an ID card.
Yeah, and you'd be surprised. In the developed world, everybody does. But in the developing world, it's something that a lot of people, when they're born, they have no legal identity. And the legal identity, as per that goal that I spoke about with Target 16.9, that is the key to unlocking a lot of the...
Why haven't they gotten to it? Why haven't governments gotten to it? Is it just not a priority?
It's not a priority, yeah. For a lot of governments, it's something that they haven't focused on. And again, oftentimes it's because they haven't got the technology in place to do it. But with blockchain, it's enabling a lot of countries to leapfrog in much the same way that mobile broadband did in Africa. So without having the cables in the ground, you can now bypass with blockchain what you would have done in the past. It's a lightweight infrastructure that you can issue legal identities really quickly and efficiently.
So yeah, our ID cards, our passports here in America or in Ireland aren't on the blockchain by default, and our identities are not digital essentially. They can be digitized, but they're not a primarily digital identity that exists in cyberspace, and our transactions don't exist on that blockchain. So these folks are going to be like people using M-Pesa and other technologies. They literally never owned a desktop computer, and they're never going to own a credit card. They're just going to own virtual currency and have digital identity. How do you make money? I don't invest in charities. I invest in businesses. I do give to charities, but you're an investment of mine. You're a for-profit company that makes that we know the what you make, but we don't know who you sell it to and how you price it. So explain how you price it and who buys it. Does the individual consumer pay $1 a month to have an identity? Does the UN pay for this? Who's paying for your software?
Yeah, sure. And it's a great question. For us, we do not charge the person using the technology, but our business model is we charge a fee per user per month. It's $1, but the paying customer for our digital identity is going to be a government. So for example, we work with our partners, the United Nations Development Programme, the Red Cross, and what we do is we give them our technology for free, and then they get their funding from governments, from philanthropists, people like Bill Gates, the Omidyar Foundation. And again, all down to your great incubator today, Jason, we are going to be meeting with somebody from the Omidyar Foundation. But essentially,
fantastic.
Yeah, so looking forward to that. But we charge a fee per user per month. It's $1 typically. It can vary depending on the country. But we like to say that as well as a SaaS-based business model, we bring TAS, which is transparency as a service. And that is, again, the mission of the company.
Now, you have to have a country buy into that. They have to want transparency. They have to want people who disappear to have an identity. As opposed to dictatorships, despots, and horrible people around the world, they might have actually been better served if people were undocumented. Is that not true? It's a human rights effort as well.
It's true to a certain extent, but a lot of the people that we work with, for example, and this is the analogy we like to say is that we are like David piggybacking on the back of Goliath. Yeah. So for example, what ATEC does is we partner with people like the UNDP, and what we do is we piggyback on them and their reputation. They take us into a country. So if we go to a country like Serbia, which we're in right now, rolling out our remittances project.
It's about 9 million people there.
Yeah, that's great. And for example, one vertical that we're going into there is remittances, and that's a $2.4 billion
What is
market.
remittances? What is that?
A remittance it's huge. So remittances is a $452 billion market.
What is it?
And it's basically sending money cross-border. So for example, if
Money transfer.
If somebody here in San Fran has got a relative back in China, they will typically send a lot of the money that they earn back to China. It could be weekly, it could be monthly. And oftentimes then they are hit with very high fees. And the fees, according to the World Bank, who we have partnered with, are on average 7.32% as of 2016.
So the people who can afford least to pay the fees pay the highest.
It's exactly what it is. And for example,
Welcome
we spoke with...
it's a dark trend in the world. Yeah.
So we spoke with the people in Somalia recently, and they told us that 90% of the economy in Somalia is based on remittances, and the fees on average are between 17 and 20%. But what we're doing is in a project that we're kicking off in Serbia with the UN is we are partnering with them, and we are using Stripe as a delivery mechanism, and we are bringing the cost of remittances down. And to go back to the Sustainable Development Goals, another goal goal of the UN is Target 10, and Target 10C specifically is to bring the cost of remittances down below 3% by the year 2030.
So just what people pay in the United States to whoever, Stripe or Square or PayPal, to do basic credit card transactions and deal with fraud and have some economic incentive, but not a predatory one.
Exactly.
So a country like Somalia with a population of about 11 million or just over, about 9 million in Serbia, is your intention to get all of them and have each of those be $100 million a year client? Which $100 million a year sounds great to me as an investor, if you can get a couple of countries to do that. And for the country itself, $100 million, or if you gave them a bulk discount and it was $25 or $50 million, seems like an incredibly affordable way to execute on this. This is going to save them a magnitude, 90%, 50%, I don't know what the number would be, versus making print forgeable passports.
Exactly. And going back to Serbia again, with what we're doing there is just a huge amount of people. The fees are on average about 8% in that country. We're going to bring them below 3% with the project that we're doing. But we have signed an agreement with the UN to bring the same offering to 20 countries within the next few months based on the success of the pilot, which is kicking off very soon. And going back to the business model, what we do as well with that is we take an additional transaction fee on top of the fee per user per month per identity on top of that as well. So that is how we get this recurring revenue stream. But again, it goes back to the mission we're solving, bringing social and financial inclusion to the world's undocumented and underserved. And again, the governments around the world are seeing that things like remittances, if you can get back more of the remittance, if that can circulate within the economy, that means that you're improving the economy in that country. And you can imagine if you scale that up and you bring these hundreds of millions back into an economy, and if we make money doing it at the same time with our partners, it's a completely win-win situation.
It would be 4% of additional GDP if you went from 7 to 3 in a way.
Yeah.
You'd immediately have 4%. Well, no, the entire economy does not go through remittance, but people might be moving money around so often that maybe it does. Who knows how much is sent back and forth? But if you were to lower those fees, the concept would be that would be a tax break. We have this happen here in the United States when we lower taxes or lower mortgage rates or gasoline becomes cheap. We see people take more vacations, and are able to spend money on, blue jeans and going out to dinner. So this could be amazing for economies in the world to increase consumer spending and increase savings.
Completely. Yeah. And what we're doing is, because of the nature of the technology, how we've harnessed it, by basically taking the code that we've written for the remittances offering, we can replicate that with very little effort for additional verticals. They are things like donations, that can be welfare, and that can be international aid. And we're also kicking off another project in Jordan with the United Nations, and we got some funding from the government of Dubai as part of Expo 2020. They gave us $100,000, and we are going to be rolling out a project in Jordan with the United Nations to distribute welfare, and that will be the biggest delivery of welfare on the blockchain in the year 2017.
Great. So talking to you just as a founder and investor and founder to founder, investor to founder, it feels like you're in the finding product market fit, and you're such a dynamic group of individuals. It seems like you're able to sell people these great projects, but we have not yet hit a repeatable, scalable process yet. Is that accurate to describe the sort of moment in time we're at with ATech?
Yeah, so we believe we already have the technology to make it repeatable. We haven't scaled as of yet, but with the partners that we have, it'll probably take us a little bit longer than it would a typical SaaS company with a consumer app. But
or a SaaS company with an enterprise app like a Slack, because they can just sell to a massively fragmented market. You're selling to governments in the UN. That makes me scared. What's the sales cycle like, and how do you accelerate it?
So for us, the sales cycle really is a bit longer than it would be for, an app that you put out in an app store and getting in there. But for us to accelerate it is we have to prove that we can actually deliver on that, which we have been doing by developing the offerings. And we speed it up because of the reputation that we have. Number one, it's been hard earned, hard fought. We are now considered in the world that we inhabit as being the leading company using blockchain technology to solve the problems for these governments. But to speed it up, it's really a lot of hustle, Jason. We get out there, we meet people, we show them what we can do. For example,
it's really a sales-driven, business development-driven company in addition to a technology-driven one, is it not? Is your background and Joe's in business development sales? Because one of the things that's great about this company is I see so much activity in terms of these pilots that it leads me to believe that one of these pilots will break out at some point. But what's you and Joe, your and Joe's background? Were you in sales and business development? How does that help you
So Joe is phenomenal. Joe has about 4 different qualifications. He's got an MBA, he's got a master's in strategic IT. He did a master's in digital currency out of the university in Nicosia. I did a degree in information technology, but we have technical backgrounds, but we discovered pretty early that we weren't great at coding. So we thought we could talk a little bit better than we could code, and business development was something that suited us. But we met working for a telco company. We traveled the world. We visited about 33 countries.
So you cut your teeth at that telco company.
We did, yeah.
Doing BD.
Doing BD, a lot of technical training. So we were going out to explaining to engineers how to use really, really cutting edge technology developed by a company called Ericsson. And we both found out that we were quite good at doing that. And then given what we're doing today now with the technology that we have, which you're pretty well up on it, but it can be quite a bit of, it's something.
No, it's definitely a ramp up for everybody to understand what the blockchain is. What is a ledger that is open to everybody and distributed and doesn't exist in one place? It exists in all places or many places.
Yeah.
This is a crazy new concept. Let's talk a little bit about ICOs. This has been a bit of a craze. I've looked at the companies ICOing and said, wow, 9 out of 10 of these would not get funded by the venture or angel community. The people who've built over the last 40 or 50 years, the greatest companies in the world would not invest in these. Except maybe Vinnie Lingham's looks pretty promising. Filecoin marginally looks interesting. But to see $200 million or $100 million go into some of these companies before they've actually built a product, and you are making hundreds of thousands of dollars in pilots and actually have customers and people using it and have written the code already in the product, why have you not done an ICO and taken advantage of this boom?
I tell you what, the reputation that we have right now has been really hard fought. We've been traveling the world, going back to your point about educating people on what blockchain technology is. For example, we spent time with the International Federation of the Red Cross in Geneva, educating about what blockchain is. But there is a lot of uncertainty around ICOs at the moment. We're not saying we're not going to do one. We're considering it. And we believe in that it's really, you can draw parallels between the .com bubble burst back in 2000. And a lot of people would have said that a lot of the companies back then were, if you pardon my language, were dog shit companies.
Yeah.
But there were some great companies who came out of that. And we think now there's going to be a bit more regulation coming into ICOs. We have a guy on our board who is the former director of the US Mint. We're speaking with him right now, and the SEC about potentially doing an ICO. We haven't committed to it yet because if and when we do one, we want to ensure that we check every base possible to ensure that we run the best ICO in the world to date. Right. And because of the partners that we have, if we choose to do it, we believe that we could run the greatest ICO that has been done to date.
Really?
Yeah.
See, I think an ICO where you said, we're going to make, this is what I would do. And let me see what you think. And now I'm just an investor, so I always, as an investor, always present these things as just ideas that I see from, sitting on the bench, but you're actually in the game, so you have to tell me if you think there's a possibility here. The identity product is something that you currently make money off of. What if you raised money and said, hey, there are this many billion of undocumented people. We're going to try to raise the money to deploy to get this percentage of them documented for free. So if we were to raise a Tezos-like $200 million round, 90% of whatever we raise goes into the digital identity fund to freely identify people and build that infrastructure for folks. So then nonprofits, whether it's Bill Gates or Pierre or whoever, the UN, whoever wants to put money into this can say, you know what? We're putting money in this just to give identity to people. They're not going to make any money off of that, and it's an open identity platform that anybody can use. And then you could say, we're going to reserve 20% of it for our company to then make software to do stuff on top of that identity level. What do you think of that concept?
That's an intriguing concept, and we have ran through a few scenarios.
Is that your concept too? Or no?
It's very close. We're currently analyzing very close. It's very, very, very close. Actually, we have about 3 different scenarios that we're working through right now. And as I mentioned, when we pick one of them, when we execute upon it, if we do, that would be right now at the top of our list. So it's like you've read my mind, Jason.
Well, I'm going to give you another idea. What about an ICO per country? So you say, we're going to do the Serbia ICO, the Somalia ICO, and people then would be able to bet on each country and say, hey, there's 11 million people in Somalia. We're going to try to raise $10 per person to do this identity project, and it will go into a nonprofit. We're going to take 20% of it to run our for-profit. The other 80% is going to go for the next 5 years to get as many, or next 10 years, to get as many people online as possible and provide that infrastructure for free and places where people can go sign up to get their identity. What if you did an ICO per country? So you had AidTech, Somalia ICO, Serbia ICO. Then you could tap into local pools of capital and international pools of capital that want to bet on that country's future.
Well, we've got the reach to do it, that's for sure. We've got the reputation right now. We've got the partners. That goes back to the business model. And again, Jason, you're reading. It's like you've been listening into our conversations.
Or you've been in my incubator. But no, you guys have done a great job in the incubator. Tell everybody, as we wrap up here, what your thoughts are on how you've been able to accomplish so much while in the incubator and optimizing for an incubator-like experience. When you're a founder, you get into an incubator and you've got just a small amount of resources. Obviously, the incubator takes some of them. What are the best practices or things you've learned about leveraging and who should go to an incubator, who shouldn't, and how to get the most out of it? A couple different questions.
Yeah. Well, for us then, your incubator, I'm not saying this is phenomenal. So the thing that we struggled with initially, being based out of Dublin, Ireland, we have an office in London too, was that people in that part of the world, in Europe, and I've heard you speak about this in the podcast before, with the exception of Sweden, is that, maybe people don't think quite as big as they would over here. So for us, coming to Silicon Valley, being on your incubator has been phenomenal. But
opening up maybe your ambition.
Yeah, for example, we spoke with already this week, and it's all thanks to you and the team at launch, Jackie, Jess, everybody that we've met,
Luke,
Ashley, Troy, they're phenomenal people in here. But I think it's down to your team. And we went through Techstars before. That was a phenomenal accelerator in London. But for us, really, we sped up and we learned a huge amount. And I think a lot of the mistakes that we would have made, we didn't make them because of the incubator. And I think if you want to avoid making mistakes, which are part of the game, going through an incubator and learning from somebody like you and learning how to pitch. I met you back in April for the first time. I'd been listening to your podcast for years, but the way you described how to pitch, the three rules that you have, is it 3, isn't it?
4, but
Four?
There's 3 that are important. Get to the product in 15 seconds is one that you don't. Synchronicity is incredibly important. Explain to people why synchronicity is important in a presentation.
Synchronicity is very important because, again, if you think about the information that you're throwing at somebody, if you're throwing too much information at them, which we have been guilty of in the past. So I'll give you an example. 3 years ago when we set the company up, we talked about, we are a blockchain company doing X, and it was really tech focused. But for us to get this message out there, which we've been quite good at doing, as evidenced by my co-founder Joe being on a billboard in Times Square today, learning how to tell that story. And you sum it up really well, and you describe it as telling it. It's like a trailer for a movie.
Right.
You want to get people interested, and then when they see that trailer, they want to learn more. So
and maybe spend 2 hours with you.
Yeah.
So when you're doing that pitch, being able to do a 1 to 5 minute pitch, pick a number of minutes, because sometimes the UN will give you 3 minutes, sometimes a conference will give you 5, and sometimes you might just meet somebody walking down the street and have 2 minutes in a coffee shop with them. You got to be able to tell that compelling story clearly and concisely, so they want to then come see your 2-hour movie, 3-hour movie, and dig deep into your company.
And it's like life, Jason. It's a sales game. Even when I think about my home life with my wife, she's going to listen back to this, and she might not like me saying it, but it's a sales game even at home when you're in the startup world to have that survivability.
Sometimes you got to convince your spouse to sacrifice and take care of the family, or to sacrifice and not see you for 2 weeks while you're doing this. And a lot of people who come to the incubator have to have that conversation with a spouse or a partner of whatever type. And say, hey, it's going to be 12 intense weeks, and there's 20 sessions, so you're not going to see much of me, especially if I'm commuting in from Dublin.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, this has been amazing. It's been really great to be an investor in the company. I'm very bullish on it, and it's great to see the effort you put in. Not every idea is going to work, and not every company is going to succeed, but what you do have control over is the effort you put in. And Joe and Nile have put in a tremendous amount of effort, and for that, they have my respect and investment. You can go check out more about AID Technology at aid.technology. You got that .technology domain name, and they're AID Technology on Twitter. And Nile is Dennehy, Nile, Niall, whatever. You can search for him on the Twitter, and continued success. And if you're in jasonsyndicate.com, you never know. Anything's possible. Maybe at some point we'll syndicate that deal. We'll see. But you've been doing very good with the investors. So you guys get, every week we score how many votes you get from investors, and you've been in the top 3 pretty regularly. So
I believe overall, I think we may be number 1, maybe 2 at the moment.
I think you're 2 at the moment.
Number 2 at the moment. We've got to change that today then.
Yeah, maybe tonight. Well, is today the night we're doing double session?
We're doing double tonight, yeah.
Oh boy, double time. It's a little exhausting, this incubator. I'm getting exhausted. I'm not in the program. I don't have to do any work. I just show up and listen, and I'm getting tired. Is it too exhausting, or is it just right?
I think it's perfect.
Yeah.
It's perfect. We've got to take the jet lag into account, but as soon as we hop off the plane from Dublin or London or even New York, we just get this crazy energy comes over us, and I think maybe we pick it up from you, Jason. That might be it.
That's very kind of you, Nile. All right, thanks so much, and we'll be back with more. Let me take a moment to thank our partner, IBM. Of course, they are dedicated to supporting startups and developers by providing developer communities in cities all over the world. You'll get support, connections, and opportunities to grow. And they are helping companies imagine the art of the possible with solution architects, researchers, and developer advocates in Watson, IoT, mobile, and more. IBM Code helps you grow your skills with how-to tutorials and courses on IBM tools and open standard technologies for your next app development. They're helping developers and founders in every industry build cognitive solutions with access to trials and free technology usage credits for up to a year. Turn your learning into real solutions for today's problems. IBM is dedicated to the startup community. We know that because they're at all of our events like Launch Scale and the festival as VIP guests, and they bring all of these founders as well as VIPs to our events, and they give them demo tables and VIP tickets. They're incredibly generous, the team over at IBM, and we really appreciate that. I've been so impressed with these companies. We've invested in a couple of them like AidTech and Carforce, and you can learn more about IBM's developer community for startups. It's developer.ibm.com/startups. developer.ibm.com/startups. Go ahead and visit developer.ibm.com/startups. Go ahead and visit developer.ibm.com/startups. Okay, let's get back to this amazing program. Okay, welcome back, everybody. And now on the program, we've got a very special founder who is going to show us a very special toy. And this toy is designed not just to have fun with, but to help kids who are suffering with autism. And the founder of this company is Richard Margolin. Richard, did I pronounce your last name correct?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, well, welcome to the program, Richard. Now, you are the co-founder and CTO of RoboKind, and you make a robotic toy for kids with autism. And I know this because I've seen the demonstration before, and it's really interesting. Can you give us a demo of this? And if you could sportscast it a bit, that would be great so people who are listening understand what you've built and why.
Sure. So what we've built is a facially expressive robot named Milo. We use him to teach social and emotional skills to children with autism because they have trouble engaging with other people, kind of by definition of what autism is. And consequence of that is they have trouble with therapy because traditional therapy is person to person and they can't engage. And just like any other type of learning, if you can't engage, you can't learn. So I'm going to show just a real quick portion of an intro to greetings. Basically what we're teaching is how do you say hi to someone else? And what you'll see is the robot will talk, he'll move, he has a little screen on his chest that'll show flashcards, and then he'll show videos on an iPad. And we've kind of done about 1,700 3 to 7 second videos. So,
and for people who are not listening right now, while you load it up, I can describe the doll for them. It looks like a superhero, kind of in with like your standard action hero doll. It looks like it's about 18 inches tall or so, and it's got a screen on its chest, and it's very expressive. And as you said, a child with autism has a hard time interacting with another human, be it a teacher or a specialist or a parent or a sibling, a classmate. But for some reason, and I hope you can explain this to me because I'm a neophyte when it comes to my understanding of autism, why is it, or why do you speculate, or do you even know why a child with autism is so much more likely to have an interaction with a robot than a parent, a sibling, or even a specialist who's been trained to interact with them?
Sure. So when it comes to the engagement and interaction with other people versus the robot, basically, as we understand it now, and what a lot of people with autism have kind of told me directly, is the robot's predictable. There's a lot less bandwidth, if you will, social bandwidth in the communication. He's consistent. And so when it comes to especially people who are kind of mid to lower functioning, they need a lot more kind of pared back stuff. And because the robot is really consistent and predictable, it's not overwhelming and it's not scary.
Interesting. So the thesis there is that somebody with autism finds a, let's call it a average human, an average human, to interact with them. They have too much signal going on, too much emotion, too much range of emotion or humanity, or interaction or intensity.
Yeah.
Am I explaining it correctly from my neophyte perspective? Is that what this low-level autism creates in them?
Yeah, absolutely. And it creates a huge amount of anxiety. So for a lot of kids with autism, one of their biggest initial issues is they have meltdowns, which are essentially panic attacks on a regular basis, because just interacting with people and all the rest of the kind of information coming into them in the world, they have trouble filtering it, and they have trouble kind of identifying what's important and what's not. And so they just get overwhelmed and they have meltdowns.
I'm fascinated by this background. Can I just ask you one more question about that, which is, did they know what the origin is of this issue? Is the cause of it have something to do with chemistry, brain structure, their nervous system, or is it behavioral? Is it nature or nurture? What is the origin of this? And do we refer to autism as a disease?
It's a disability.
A disability, a condition?
Yeah,
a condition.
Yeah.
So how do we, when you have this condition, what's the origin of it? Do we even know scientifically? I'm curious.
Not entirely. So autism is kind of a behavioral diagnosis of what in reality is a lot of different things. So there are some forms or sources of autism, if you will, that are known, and they're genetic and things like that. There are some that are developmental, where structures of the brain didn't quite, develop correctly, and all kinds of other stuff that influence it. And again, it's really kind of a behavioral classification. So any number of things can cause these issues or something kind of within autism.
Fantastic. Thank you for that explanation and for educating me. One of the great things about being an angel investor is you're constantly being educated as to how things work in the world and the creative solutions that founders have. So when you deployed this solution, what was the efficacy? And then we'll get into the demo.
Sure. So in terms of the efficacy, before we started RoboKind, I'd been working doing large human scale robots for a number of years, and had supported a lot of research studies at different universities. And I saw a lot of potential, and other people had been doing research with robots and autism for quite a long time, like 20, 30 years. And there was a lot of evidence that this could be really helpful. But the problem was no one was really developing real product around it. So, the robots I was building before I started RoboKind were hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars a piece, which a university can afford, but you're never going to get into a public school where most of these kids are. And then on the content side, no one was really developing curriculum really specific to what these kids needed. And so there were all these kind of elements of research and some efficacy and a lot of evidence that this would work, but I had to come in and really put it together and develop a robot that could survive in a classroom with kids.
All right, so you have some videos prepared. Let's see one.
Sure. So I'm going to basically teach you how to say hi.
Okay. I've been working on this.
Good. So Milo is going to teach you how to say hi, I should say.
Thanks, Milo.
And so he's going to teach you that you need to look, smile, and say hi. And so this is like very early in the curriculum, just kind of the greetings. And so I'll try and hold up the tablet too, so you
Sure.
can see as
We can see
we
it
get to the
pretty well,
demo.
yeah.
Great. Okay. Here we go then.
No needs to hold it up. We can see it from that angle. Yeah. I'll describe it to people.
Okay.
We're going to learn about saying hi first today. This is called greeting. When we greet a friend, we look at the friend's face, smile, and say hi. I can say hi to other kids. I can say hi to grown-ups. Let's see some of my friends saying hi to each other. Look at the tablet.
Hi. Hi.
Let's watch another example.
Hi. Hi.
Let's watch our last example.
Hi. Hi.
See how my friends looked at each other's faces, smiled, and said, hi. These were good greetings. Let's watch more friends. See if they can do it right. Look at the tablet.
Hi. Hi.
My friend did not do a good job with the greeting. He did not do something. What does my friend need to do? Look at the tablet.
Okay, and so now we've got answer buttons that have popped up. And so it says smile, say hi, look. In the last video, the kid didn't look. If you want, I can kind of switch to other lesson types. But
No, I think I get it.
gives
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, it, as you see, it's kind of slow paced. We actually slow down the robot's speech, which helps kids with auditory processing issues absorb more. Lots of repetition and consistency. It's not the most kind of fun thing to watch in the world, but it works amazingly with these kids. And then, of course, we quiz, and that's where we start getting into tracking student progress. We baseline them when they start, and we're able to track progress throughout and really kind of show where they need more help and show that the program's working or adjust what the students are doing. And so, and you see it's look, smile, say hi. It's basically process-oriented learning. So you're teaching almost like you'd be teaching an algorithm or something like that. And whether it's the emotional stuff where you're literally saying, you're starting with, here are the parts of the face, here's the mouth, it moves up and down, here are my eyelids, they open and close, my eyebrows go up and down. That's our starting point. And then here, when my mouth goes up, it's a smile, and that means I'm happy. And so that's kind of the level at which we're having to basically break down the social learning and then build it back up kind of from its primitives.
Fantastic. So this seems incredibly effective to me. Can you tell me, did you do any studies? Did you have any A/B testing or comparison of instead of a robot telling people to look at the greetings, a human, an adult working with a child? And I would think that an adult with a master's degree or PhD in education or dealing with special needs children would be more effective. Does getting a PhD and being a special needs counselor for people with autism work better, or does the $1,000, $2,000 robot work better?
Well, the robot works better. And again, going back to that kind of being overwhelmed by the interaction with other people, it's no fault of the therapists or the teachers or anything like that. It's just autism as a condition just kind of lends better to interacting with these. And in terms of studies, so our first earliest study was directly comparing engagement and lesson progress for same curriculum with our robot leading and then with a therapist leading. And what we saw was on the engagement measure, the kids were only engaging with the therapist about 3% of the time. And with the robot, they were engaging 87.5% of the time. So this isn't just like a little incremental difference. It's enormous. It's kind of no engagement versus really getting in there.
25x. I mean, this is the kind of
Yeah.
engagement that when you're an entrepreneur, and you're an entrepreneur, when you're building a product like this, looking for a 10x or a 20x solution is where the magic happens. Let's talk about the business side of this. What does an autism specialist charge per session, and what do you charge per session?
Sure. So most of our customers are public schools, and so they're basically buying a full package, and then we're training teachers, and that's kind of a flat fee for the robot on a lease term, and then an annual subscription.
Got it.
Our standard model is basically first year, the robot, the curriculum, and all the training is $11,500, and then after that, it's $3,250 a year.
So
and that then works with like 15 to 20 kids.
So it's incredibly affordable. You're talking about less than $1,000 per year per kid, less than $100 per month per kid.
Yeah. So it's about the same price as 4 to 6 hours of therapy.
Wow, per month.
A year.
A year. Oh, therapy is $300 or $400, not $30 or $40 an hour.
Yeah. Therapy is like in California, $125 an hour.
Wow. So this is an incredibly powerful solution. I'm assuming that an expert would work with a couple of these and a number of children and be monitoring them as well. So you're not eliminating the professional, you're making the professional more effective.
Absolutely. This is a tool. We're not really replacing anyone, but it also allows us to train teachers, even parent volunteers in these classrooms, to be able to kind of facilitate and monitor. And you don't always need the therapist there on site. And it really makes the therapist more effective because this isn't kind of the stuff they really want to do or are good at. They want to look at the data, see where the student needs help, and really help them in those specific areas. So it's really a force multiplier.
How long have you been working on this project, and how is it evolving as a business? What's your biggest challenge as a founder?
Yeah, so we've been at this for 6.5 years. The early challenges were developing the hardware and the curriculum and stuff like that. We're working with education, so we really have government as customers. So everything moves slower than you want it to. And what we've really figured out is the higher up the chain we can go, the kind of more impactful and the faster we can move. So early on, we were looking for early adopter schools, and they'd buy 1 or 2 at a time. And we've moved more towards districts buying 5 to 20 at a time, and even now states getting involved directly. Like in Texas, we now have funding that actually officially starts today for 300 robots in the coming year.
Amazing. Fantastic. And let me ask you, as we wrap up here, is there something we've learned about these robots that would apply to people who do not have autism? In other words, would you take the same technology and offer it to me for my 8-year-old to learn how to do math or history? Do you envision a moment in time where robots are teaching our kids and our kids are more interested in robots? Because I can tell you today, my daughter is much more interested in YouTube Kids and watching YouTube nature documentaries than interacting with a teacher, and she does not have autism. And I see many kids are much more interested in a screen than they are an actual teacher, although I have mixed feelings about that.
Sure. So, yes, absolutely. We're actually, our next curriculum that we're releasing is to teach kids to code. And so, again, it's for schools. And the reason we're focusing there is because all of these schools have STEM initiatives and they're pushing hard to get kids coding. But at the elementary school level, there aren't qualified teachers. So what we've been able to do is develop a course that can be led by a teacher, a librarian, what have you, and the course plus the robot, and then we've created a 3D simulation of the robot so that a classroom can have one robot and the kids can take home their avatar and keep working and play around and really figure this stuff out. And so, I think there's a lot of opportunity outside of just special needs. And in the classrooms we've tested this coding course in, we've seen enrollment jump up like 10x, and we've seen kids really get excited about doing
And
this.
these are kids who, to be clear, are not suffering from autism. These are...
No, yeah, just regular kids, mostly in kind of rural areas and other areas where they just don't have the resources to bring in that kind of teacher. And I mean, they just get excited. It's made me break down crying with joy with how successful it's been, even with the small tests we've done on the coding.
How close are you to these robots being sentient and being able to pass the to cross the uncanny valley? Right now, they do not cross the uncanny valley. They look like robots.
Yeah,
do you think about that ever?
Oh, of course.
When do you think that is? When do you think that moment is? Since I have you here, on we watch Westworld, and we all know the uncanny valley is when the robot becomes so lifelike that a human would not be able to tell the difference. And we saw that actually occur in Pixar's movies, right? There was a time when you knew you were watching computer animated films or 3D or computer generated characters, like, in a Star Wars film. And then there was a moment at which you couldn't tell a human from a CGI human from a regular human. That's what they mean by the uncanny valley. And the uncanny valley here would be a robot that you can't tell. Give me a year that you think will cross the uncanny valley.
I think we'll cross the uncanny valley in, I'm going to say 2029.
Okay. I said 2035. What has to happen?
So I think in terms of movement and appearance, we're close. There's a lot of kind of miniaturization that needs to happen with motors, which is a lot tougher than with computers to make everything work, or new actuators. We have skin, and we have really good things that can move well. On the consciousness side, if you will, on the engaging and interacting with it side, that's all the natural human interaction AI that lots and lots of people are working on. We're starting to work with some IBM Watson tools as we are, so that I can let 9-year-old kids have access through this coding course, start playing with multi-billion-dollar AI. But it's all about just combining all the pieces that people are working on, because all the computer vision elements, natural language processing and understanding, all of those are really great, and they'll all progress wonderfully and get better. But it's going to take someone really focusing on unifying all of those separate tools into something that's really convincing.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see if somebody could give an answer and also have an API that lets you do the facial expression so that their eyebrow goes up and their smirk and their eyes roll, and you have a real human reaction to a joke, as opposed to a robotic simulation that looks like a robot responding to a joke. Or telling it. Alexa's getting pretty good at telling jokes, I will say that. I'm doing a lot of, hey, Alexa, tell us a dad joke, which I think I just set off about 10,000 Alexas right now. Hey, Alexa, tell us a dad joke. That's my pro tip for people. All right, listen. Richard Margolin, continue the great work. Good luck on the non-autism-based efforts. I think that opens up a huge market for you, so congratulations on that. Thanks to our friends at IBM for supporting independent media like This Week in Startups. Thanks for using IBM's awesome cloud tools, and Watson. I know that's a pretty cool product and enables you to do a lot. Go ahead and check out RoboKind, RoboKind.com, and you can follow RoboKind on the Twitter. And I'm sure you're Richard at RoboKind.com if people want to contact you and buy a robot or join the company.
Absolutely.
All right, continued success, and we'll see you soon.